Hey there, music makers. I'm Hayes Griffin.
I'm Magnus and Hayes.
And welcome to Mandolin Secrets Live, a bi-weekly show where we take a deeper look at what's happening in the world of mandolin secrets. Each episode, we'll tackle our question of the week, unpack the latest mandolin secrets lessons, and answer your questions about mandolin, guitar, and all things music. In this week's episode, we'll be discussing our question of the week. Actually, we've got 3 this week. Do you have a successful practice routine you'd like to share? Do you play any non-mandolin family? Yeah, that's a great one, right?
Yeah.
Do you play any non-mandolin family instruments? If so, which ones? And do you ever use alternate tunings for the mandolin? We're also going to be looking at a new lesson that I released on the Mandolin Secrets page this past week for It Don't Mean a Thing If It Ain't Got That Swing. Before we dive into all of that stuff, though, be sure to head to mandolinsecrets.com/live to sign up for reminders about our upcoming streams. And if you can't tune in live with us, never fear, just search Mandolin Secrets Live on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe to get updates when we release a new episode. We are out on all the major platforms now, folks, so we'd love to meet you at your preferred location. But I think Magnus has got a little question here for us to kick things off, though. What's going on, Magnus?
Yes, here's the thing that's on my mind right now. I want to know do you notate music? If there's some listeners here with us live, please put in the comments if you're used to that. And my follow-up questions, do you do this on paper or do you get a digital solution for it? And maybe even if there's a software you can recommend. And I have a very... Actually, this is the question that's been on my mind that I want to ask. I want to pick your brain about this, Hayes, because I know you got some experience, right?
Definitely. This is kind of right in my wheelhouse.
Yeah, I mean, you're even ran like a transcribing business, right?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
So people would call and ask me to type all sorts of stuff out on the computer, music notation wise. So definitely something I had to get to know very well.
Oh, that's awesome. And I want to tell you a little backstory why this has been so present for me right now. And it's like an urgent question to get to sort out, basically. But here's the thing. Last weekend, I played a concert with a big orchestra, or not big, but like a 15 people string orchestra. Not the best English right there, but you know what I'm after.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and the thing is, we were playing with my band Nordic and this string orchestra, and we also was rehearsing for 2 days, and while rehearsing with the orchestra, they are always referring to the score, right? They are reading music all the time. With my band, we're not reading music at all, basically, normally. So they send me, so when doing rehearsing, they're, okay, let's take this part from bar number 72 again. And then they just want to, us to kick in right there. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, and who knows what happens in bar 72 if you don't have the score. So I was responsible in the band to keeping track of the score, seeing where everything happened. So they sent me these scores, and it was 10 songs, and basically each this is and they sent to me digitally, and it was. Where was I? Yeah, so they sent me these PDFs, and it was maybe 10 to 20 pages long, each one of them. And I was before going there, I was should I print all this paper music? And all I need it for is to basically find what music is happening in bar 72 at this song.
And that's ridiculous. So you've got hundreds of pages of music that you would have to scramble through in order to find the pickup measure.
Exactly. But luckily I brought my iPad. I exported it all in there to this PDF reader, basically, and that helped me to sort out this situation perfectly. You know how an iPad works. But it was the first time for me using it for Musescore. but so handy, And it also turned out that like most people in the orchestra were doing the same thing, keeping their parts at their iPads. This really big tablets, the Pros or what they are calling. Yeah.
Yeah. It makes sense, honestly, because like I never played in string orchestras before, but I went to music school, so all of my friends played in the orchestra and stuff like that, and I would see them going to rehearsal with like folders,
Yes.
like 3 inches thick, just full of music that they had to keep track of. So I could see that being advantageous to have all that on an iPad now, right?
Exactly, and they even because they were digitalized, like many of them. And so they also pointed me in the direction for the right. There's, of course, Musescore apps for the iPad. And I didn't have one before, but I now have one. It's called Forscore. It's just like the perfect way to put all written music. And you can like put all of annotations, like music related and all things. And it's so organized. And the best thing is, here's the thing also. I came there because I also prepared actually music we were playing this Vivaldi piece. I have written down maybe 6 pages of my own part, like for this, basically.
Yeah.
But the thing, it was so easy even to like include that one into the app. Basically scanning and all that. So during the rehearsal, during the concerts, I went digital, sort of.
Yeah.
And it's so organized. And now that I'm like, I know we will do this program again, and everything is like prepared just to go to the gig, sort of.
It's just there. Yeah.
It's just there. I don't have to remember where. And here's the thing. I want to show you this image. Just have a look at this. So this is for people who are not part, like, Hayes, describe in like 10 words what you're seeing in the image here.
I can do it in one word: chaos.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's absolute chaos. It just like folders like spread out all over a desk, like disorganized. Like I wouldn't even know where to dive in to figure out what was going on there.
No. And I can tell you, it's even on the floor. So when you know that and it's basically, what can it be, like 30 different folders of music that I collected over the years. And when I moved, that I moved my studio space very recently.
Yes.
And when I moved the furniture here, I was a bit in a hurry, so I actually just emptied the cupboard, sort of, and brought that one here. And I've been thinking about like sorting out in this sheet music and then bringing the stuff over here. But then I now have the tools to actually digitalize all of this.
That's so cool, man. Yeah, that's kind of, to me, it's liberating, right? Then you can all of those books that would take up shelves now fit in this much space, right?
And you know what? And a lot of these folders there were actually printed from like ebooks that I have. So I already got rid of maybe half of this without even scanning a single piece of music. Just getting rid of. Cool. I threw it away here in the last couple of days. I can reach them digitally, sort of. And so this is and of course I also have to kind of work on my habits of keeping things. So I'm also trying to sort of throw things away, realizing that I can never study all this music that I've kept over the years. But that's another story, sort of. But okay. Yeah. So but let me come to the point. So I also realized, because I really like writing music on paper. I'm kind of like taking notes on paper and sheet music, and then I kind of transcribe it or put it into like my computer and using a Finale app or something like that. But so I want to... Hayes, my question for you. Is there an music app for the iPad where you can basically use an Apple Pen or something like that to put your music in there?
Yeah, there are a couple. I use... So there's one app that I actually landed on this past year that specifically for the iPad.
Yeah.
And that is Symphony Pro. Symphony Pro is a really good one for specifically notating music with the Apple Pencil, because I kind of prefer to write notation that way. I know. Mm-hmm. So like I think you and I have talked about this before. When I'm notating music at the computer, I typically use a program called Musescore.
Yes, I heard you mention.
Which is kind of like it's an open source program that I love. You know, it's developed for free by a bunch of kind of like programmers all around the world that contribute to this project. Mm-hmm. And it's just now gotten to the point where I would call it just as functional as Finale or Sibelius, any of those like pro level notation softwares. Mm-hmm. But that one, they have an iPad app, but all that allows you to do is read the scores that you had created from your computer. You can't actually edit them. So I had to find Symphony Pro, but the thing that I love, the workflow is actually still pretty easy, because Symphony Pro, you can write out all of your scores with your Apple Pencil there, and then export them as music XML into Musescore on the computer if you want to like add some more specific kind of formatting or anything like that. So that's kind of my workflow now. I take the iPad upstairs with me and I sit in front of the window with my cats and notate, and then, I take it back to the computer later and kind of clean it up.
I love this. And I knew you were the right person to ask. So because that's exactly what I was, because I actually saw there was a Musescore app. I was about to download it to try it out, but I thought I must talk with Hayes about this, because I knew... Because that's exactly what I want to do. If I can, this will actually skip one step in my workflow of making a music notation for Mandolin Secrets, for example. Normally I sit with my instrument and a piece of paper and I write it down and then sort of. But this seems like a much better workflow there, because I could probably export that XML. Import it to... I'm using Finale, but anyway, that would be perfect. Yeah,
I've got one more solution too that you might try that I think is cool about Musescore.
Yeah.
So if you do prefer, like I'm looking at the comments here coming in on Facebook. Darren Lynch is with us today, and he says that he prefers an old sheet of paper. Yeah. You know what I mean? He likes the feel of the paper. So if you want to continue working with paper, but you also want to digitize these scores, Musescore actually has a function where if you scan a picture of the music notation, you have to be really clean when you're writing it out. It can't be sloppy handwriting.
No.
But if you notate on paper, you can scan with any free app on your phone, scan a picture of that to a PDF, and then in Musescore you can upload it. And they have on their website a function that will read written notation and convert it to a digital file, like a music XML. It's not perfect, but I've seen it. It's getting better. Every time I try this out again, it works better. So I think the more data we can feed it, the better it will get at like creating these scores. So that's another option for people out there who might not like to give up their pen and paper, you know?
Yeah. That's brilliant. So I'm taking notes as we go. Symphony Pro is probably the one that I will try, because I'm also, for me, I'm quite like savvy using Finale. So I'm not sure if I'm ready to go to switch my like main pro notation software, but this could be like having like a sketchbook building out the
Exactly. And that's what I appreciate the most about it, you know, because then if you make it in Symphony Pro, you can import it to literally any other notation program.
Yeah.
Finale, Sibelius, Musescore, Notion, any of them.
Wow.
So
yeah,
it's good.
Cool, because I mean, Hayes, I know that you have this. I know that you're using the iPad and the Apple Pen for making your beautiful art that you're doing, and I know you are transcribing. So I knew you were going to be the right person to ask this question.
It's like this guy totally uses that to make notation.
Wow.
Well, you caught me. Yes.
Fantastic. Perfect.
That's great, man.
Yeah, I got my answer. And I saw questions coming in. I can see Karen got a point. I guess I need a bigger screen iPad for reading music. And as I see, like now being in the environment with these orchestral musicians, they had big iPad screens. I used my small one, or the normal one, so to speak. I'm not sure how many inches it's, but the normal iPad size. And if I like tilt it into landscape mode, it's actually very smart because you can have it that way, and just when you're like tapping to go to the next page, you're only like scrolling down to the bottom of the page, sort of.
Yeah.
So that also worked quite well, I would say. But yeah, there's a reason for having a bigger screen also.
Totally. I definitely don't think I would want to use my iPad because I have the iPad. It was the first iPad Pro. It's like a 9.7 inch screen, which that gets really tiny, you know, if you're trying to read scores for 2 hours at a gig, you know. Yeah. Yeah,
good. And I'm going to keep the community updated about my process of leaving all this this clutter of music behind me. And this actually goes. I'm not proud of this part of my personality because I'm the person that creates piles, you know, back home also. So this can literally. I mean, I have to work on my habits, but just knowing that I can scan something, keep it, it will help me to get rid of all this clutter.
Yeah, I think that's where you and I are maybe similar, my friend. I don't think I ever threw a piece of music away when I was in college or anything. So I've got like over 20 years worth of stuff, just like,
yes,
it's like it's staring at me on my shelf. Like, you know, if I look at my camera, right behind it is the growing mountain of sheet music. Yeah. So this will be good for me too.
Yeah. And I'm not sure what I will do with my books. I think I will keep my books for now because it will be a very big scanning project otherwise. But I, for all loose pieces of, I'm going to get rid of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we can pay Victor to go through your books and scan those, you know?
Yeah. We could gamify it in some way.
Yeah, exactly.
Getting points for every second page he goes through or something like that.
I like that.
Yeah. Okay, and so I'm almost a little bit. I'm out of the ordinary questions that we were supposed to go into here, but let me just. I want to bring in some music into the call, so I want to play back this the clip of you playing "It Don't Mean a Thing." Is it good timing for that?
Yeah, I think it's a great time. A 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3.
dua 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 dua.
Exactly. I swear. Yeah, exactly. There's two more there, right? You know, as ridiculous as those lyrics are, I swear that was the single most helpful thing to help me like memorize that phrase, because it almost seems like it's very easy to either end that short or keep going too long. You know what I mean when you're playing that line. But ridiculous words.
Yeah, but. For anyone out there, I think you should check out this lesson. It's on our YouTube channel. And I think what's so cool with it, because you're doing this thing there where you're like playing a basic melody and then working towards a harmonized melody. Can you just very quickly tell us what's the difference?
Yeah, so for a basic melody, I kind of like to think this as something that's as close to... what a vocalist would sing. Like if, say it's, Ella Fitzgerald or someone like in front of a big band, I think it's really helpful to learn kind of like something that approximates a vocal rendition of the tune, just to kind of get your bearings completely on the melody. Because when I think about this, like approaches to jazz music and soloing and picking these tunes apart to be able to solo on them, if you have what I would call like a clean representation of the melody, that provides a really good point of departure for making a melodic solo later. Yeah. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And to answer the second half of your question, the harmonized melody is kind of like in my mind, what I do to create that harmonized melody is take that vocal melody we're talking about, take the way that a singer would be able to sing this, but then use some of the specific strengths of my instrument, in this case, the mandolin, to kind of add some more mandolinistic qualities to the song that way. So
that's
I feel like... Oh, yeah, go ahead.
No, but that's exactly what I'm thinking hearing you play this. That it's because it's very much like a mandolin version of this song when I'm hearing you doing this, using the double stops and all that. Very different from a horn player or a vocalist, is what you refer to.
Yeah, right. Because if you think about, I always think that horn players are the greatest at approximating vocal lines, right? Mm-hmm. Because they're an instrument that involves the breath. Mm-hmm. They have to breathe into their phrasing. Whereas like mandolins and guitars, I always put those more in like the piano player kind of camp. You know what I mean? Because we can't exactly phrase all the time like vocalists, so we have to exploit like harmony and things like that to kind of make it a little more proprietary to the instrument. Yeah. And I have to say too that if anyone's listening to this lesson, I totally am ripping off Jethro Burns in terms of how I think about creating a harmonized version, because this is something he did all the time, right? If you listen to his Karina is one of my favorite tracks that he did with just like kind of a double stop / chord melody approach. So I take a lot of inspiration for him.
Yeah, and if anyone listening that is not familiar with Jethro Burns, he's like one of the major like swing mandolin players out there, or it's not around anymore, but made some fantastic recordings from 50s to 70s basically, or was it?
Yeah, that's kind of when he was most active, I would say. You know,
so definitely worth checking out, because he's such a big like a milestone player into jazz and swing mandolin.
Definitely. And his kind of protege, Don Sternberg, is still around playing music and stuff too. So if you want like a live in-person kind of approach to the Jethro Burns style, check out Don's playing as well. He's an amazing mandolinist.
Yeah. We'll make sure that we put the names and in the description for this podcast so people can find them. Type them
for sure.
All right. What was the next thing that we...
Yeah, so let's dive into some of those questions of the week. So for those of you that have been keeping up with us, Magnus and I kind of took a little pause for summer vacation over the last couple weeks. So we had a few questions of the week that kind of piled up on us here. And I thought it would be really great to kind of dive into this one. Do you play? We threw this out to our community on Facebook and our Mandolin Secrets community. And it says, do you play any non-mandolin family instruments? If so, which ones? And that was like, man, you should have seen the dozens of posts that came in down the feed for that one. It's great to know, though, that, most mandolin players, or a lot of our community members, are multi-instrumentalists that way.
I love that.
Yeah, it's super cool. I saw everything, guitar was definitely, I would say, the number two, like the number one response for the instrument that they played other than mandolin family stuff.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. I was a guitar player before I took up the mandolin. You were a guitar player before you took up the mandolin. So it's like the gateway instrument, right?
Yeah. And that actually brings...
But there were all sorts of... go ahead.
No, there were all sorts of instruments. But I also think this is a great opportunity for us to mention this, that we actually are going to include the guitar content here at Mandolin Secrets, both at the YouTube channel, the podcast, and also like a membership separate for guitar content. So it's something we're putting together right now, and I'm very, very excited about it.
Yeah, I couldn't be more excited about it too. I will be done editing our flat picking foundations course today. So for those of you out there that are interested in that kind of stuff, if you've had a guitar for a while but mandolin's your main instrument and you want to dive into some more folk guitar centered kind of stuff, or jazz guitar centered kind of stuff, keep up with us. We'll definitely to have some goodies for you.
Yeah, and the details about it is we are working to be able to present this in the end of August 2021, if you're listening to this after that. We're calling it the Guitar Club, and it's going to be very focused around like bluegrass guitar, Nordic folk guitar, Celtic guitar here at the beginning, but hopefully we will expand it to putting in some blues and some swing and jazz music into it. So there is so many like possibilities with this, because as Hayes just said, both me and him are also guitar players. So it's a good opportunity for us to make this thing come alive.
Yeah, to share our first love with the rest of you, right?
Yeah.
That's great.
That's great.
Awesome. But yeah, that was one of our questions there, and we had tons of responses. Like I said, guitar was number one, but I saw so much random stuff on there, like Highland pipes and harmonica was actually one of the top results too. And I was like, that makes sense, because Magnus is a killer harmonica player. If you folks haven't heard him,
I think it's
blow some notes on the harp.
Yeah, but I think isn't that like, I guess the mindset of people picking up the mandolin, like some folk and roots kind of stuff. So I think it makes sense that we do some blues harp as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's great. I think that's all I had for that one. There was another question that was, I think the week after, that was, do you ever use alternate tunings for the mandolin? And this one was really interesting. There was only kind of one instance of like, because I've told you I grew up in the bluegrass world, and that's kind of where we, I kind of take a lot of my influences. The only alternate tuning that I had ever seen there is what a lot of folks refer to as the Get Up John tuning, because it's the alternate tuning that Bill Monroe used for the tune Get Up John.
Yeah.
So that one definitely came up in the thread. And for all of you Mando nerds out there that want to know what the Get Up John tuning is, it's actually what we would call a split course tuning. So the low G strings, you tune one of them down to an F sharp and then one of them up to an A. So the lowest course set is F sharp A.
Yeah.
You leave the middle two alone. It's D, D, A, A. And then the top course is A. So you tune it down to an A and then down to a D.
Yeah.
So you end up getting this really weird, spooky sounding D major chord when you play the whole strings open like that. But that's definitely the main one. Is this anything that you mess with, Magnus, or have you any experience with?
Well, quite interesting. I played this song, "Get Up, John," with like a country band at one point when I was back in school, and I kind of transcribed, but I didn't know about the tuning.
That's great.
Yeah. So, but I guess I came up with more like a single line sort of solo to it.
Yeah.
But once I realized there was a cross tuning happening, it made so much sense. Because you get, especially the melody is happening a lot on the first string. So everything you play up there is going to be like in the interval of fourths, right?
Yeah.
So and that what's make it's so characteristic hearing him play that song.
Yeah. If you folks haven't heard that out there, if you're not like bluegrass mandolin players, I would highly suggest go and check out Bill Monroe and Get Up John. That's a really cool kind of piece of mandolin history, and like Magnus was saying, most people were confused by it forever because they had never knew about the tunings. No. That's a common problem that I heard all the time, man. So you're definitely not alone.
No. And for the one tuning that I've experimented a little bit is what used for like Celtic players, GDAD.
That's funny because I have that on my list here as like, I wrote down the top 5 results that people threw out, and that was actually the third result on the list, GDAD. So what kind of tunes do you play in that tuning?
Well, so I don't use it but there is this like style and tradition of players like Andy Irvine, the Irish player. He uses that one, and I guess it's because it's a very common tuning for Irish bouzouki. So again, they could reuse their voicings and all that, the fingerings, or sort of
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it works great for playing tunes in the key of G and D, of course, having that D on top.
And like the AD on top, which is like kind of referencing a D chord a little bit, and then the GD on the bottom. Yeah, that's neat.
Yeah, and it's actually something I want to include in the academy at some point. Some like cross picking or cross tuning or alternate tuning.
We'll have to do a Get Up John and then your GD AD Celtic thing going on here. You know?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so that was about it for that one. But the last question of the week is one that I really want to at least touch on here before we run out of time on this episode.
Yeah.
It says, do you have a successful practice routine you'd like to share? And I wish that I could have like italicized the word successful when I put it in there, because I wanted to see if anyone was kind of like, what do I want to say? If they had a practice routine that they had been doing for a while that they felt like they were getting results from. You know? And there were some really great answers. A lot of folks had good stuff, but I know you're a kind of a practice routine guru, Magnus. Do you have one that kind of works for you?
Well, yes, I do have one. And I mean, first of all, that's something I want to say, that we want to, like, doing this and having a practice routine, it also means that we get better at practicing week after week, month after month, year after year. And so that's what happens. So it can be like, I can think back of like the practice routines I had when I was at school, at college and things like that. And I can like regret that I didn't know the things that I knew today, because I don't have as much time today as I had back then, but my practice is far more efficient. But with that said, I think it's a journey that we made, every one of us, and we have kind of to adapt these things and reflect about it constantly. So, but does that make? Can you feel the same way, Hayes?
I think I do. Yeah, like, because I don't think I first off, I feel so. I feel so much just like you when thinking back on my years in school. and how inefficient my practice was back then, compared to now. And I think part of a successful practice routine is, like you just said, is it's dynamic. It can change to kind of fit your needs as you move forward, right? As you get better at practicing, you don't need to practice all of the same things that you were doing before.
No.
You can kind of tighten up your routine and spend maybe a little less time with just the material that you need, So I feel a lot of the same kind of things as you do here. I kind of break my routine down. If I were to assign categories to like how I practice every day, I always start. There's a jazz guitar instructor named Corey Christiansen. He's a really great jazz guitar player. Who one time when I was at a jazz camp, I heard him say that you should start your practice routine by playing something that you know really well, that you can just like nail. I kind of like doing that every day because it helps me build some confidence and feel like super good about just kind of getting in the mindset of going into practice. But then after that, I do technical exercises just to get the fingers warmed up. And then I'll do I'll dive into my repertoire there. And in repertoire, what I mean by that is I usually just take 1 or 2 tunes and then use those to practice some other kind of concepts that I'm trying to get down at that point in time, whether it's like soloing over 2-5-1 progressions or, you know what I mean? But having that kind of general format allows it to change so it can kind of fit what I need to be working on. Whether it's gigs or anything like that.
And I also like to add to that the right word that you need to be working on, also the thing that you want to be working on, right? Because I've seen people have very like fixed routines, like 5 minutes of this, 5 minutes of this, and then in 1 hour you can touch upon 20 different things, and then you will. I've seen people like striving for that, and for me, I want simplicity. So like Hayes is mentioning there's like some different main points that we try to touch upon, but we don't have to decide the exact time for one thing, because that then it can be limiting if you're following too much like a structured practice routine. So keep it a little bit loose, but try to. And my okay, I can leave 3 of my tips. The first thing is the one that I just said. I try to work on things where my desire and my passion is. Because if I'm working on things that I don't really feel like doing, it's a waste of time. So that's the one thing that I try to, and I'm talking from experience here. I've been like forcing myself to work on the things that I need to do, that I like that, and it turned out it was very slow for me working like that. So that's my first thing: passion and desire. The second thing, I try to touch a little bit on what I like to mention this as craft training. It can be the technique, it can be scales, arpeggios, that kind of thing, and a little bit of repertoire at each session. So that makes like 2 things for me to kind of remember. I don't have to remember the whole structure of but I try to touch upon 2 things. And the reason for that, I see the craft training, that will actually help me to play any repertoire, sort of. But only working on that, I will never get to the point of playing music. And after all, we want to play music. Who want to listen to someone playing a scale?
Not me.
No. I think I had a third tip that I would have got. Yeah, because this is also, I love what Hayes is his approach of picking up the instrument and play something that you really know well. If I have time for it, one thing that I like to do, and this is something I actually mentioned a while ago, that I try to to noodle around for a little bit. Just pick up the instruments and play whatever comes out of my not trying to pick and choose too much of what I'm actually playing, but just to see what can and by practicing this thing of like letting go, just playing very intuitively, that has actually improved my creativity.
Yeah, that's I mean, that's something. The last teacher that I worked with for a while, he was like, Hayes, you've got all the stuff you need. You've got the harmonic language. You can play all your scales. You can do all your stuff. You can do all this. Mm-hmm. But I was feeling really uninspired when playing like solos and stuff like that. So he was steering me toward that kind of mindset when practicing. You have to practice the creative mindset, right? That's a really important part of it. Mm-hmm. You can't just expect to learn a bunch of scales and learn a bunch of arpeggios and then hope that it falls out when it comes time to create stuff, right?
No, that's so, and that's one way for me to kind of get the creativity sort of going.
I love that, man. That's great. You're dropping all the gold nuggets here today. That's cool.
All the gold nuggets. Yes, but it's been a really, really, really great call here today. I can see also people been with us watching. I'm so glad for that. And to just wrap things up, we've been talking a little bit about we went into talking about some iPad apps, and the apps that is worth checking out is the Symphony Pro, and also I mentioned this app called Forscore, which is a place to keep all your written scores, basically. We'll put links in the description, but I just wanted to point that out here before we finish the call.
Yeah, that's great, man. Well, all right, music makers. I think that about wraps it up for this episode, wouldn't you say, Magnus?
Yes. Yeah.
So we'll be back in 2 weeks for another show. As always, head to mandolinsecrets.com/live for more information on how to keep up with the show. Like I said, we're on all the podcast platforms now and stuff. So find us on Spotify, Apple Music, whatever you're using, and give us a follow there. That's a really great way to support what we're doing. Do you have any other closing thoughts for us there, Magnus?
No, I think that wraps up the things pretty well. So the last thing, I want to remind everyone out there to stay inspired and be a music maker.